Thank you, Nighthawk, wherever you may be. Welcome to Plato's Cave on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on Revolution.radio. That's right, the land down under, the country that doesn't exist. Dave and I are sitting on the Denver airport in a crisis center. That's what we're doing. That's right. Home to fresh ideas, relatively uncensored, and some of you will probably take that seriously. Conversations in the chat. We're in there. Hello in the chat. Who do we have? We've got Lavender Streams. We've got Mace139. Comet, of course. Beautiful Nara is typing just now. That's lovely. So lovely. So lovely. That's wonderful. Okay, and see if we get any more people with some activities in there. Important message. This is Listener Funded Radio, which means we need your support. If you can donate, please do. Any kind of currency is good, including crypto. We'll take crypto, no problems at all. And if you can't donate, well, hey, things are not getting cheaper. I mean, I'm just astounded. I mean, I look around when I go shopping, filling up the car. Doesn't really matter what. It doesn't matter. I think I said this. I paid $6.50 for coffee in the city. $6.50. I have a strong cappuccino, so it's 2 shots, it's like a regular size, small cup. It's not one of those jumbo Starbucks things, right?
Grande.
And it's six. I used to pay $2 for a coffee, $1.50 sometimes. Anyway, so maybe you can tell people about the show, please. Please go and tell people, and maybe one of those wonderful people can donate in your stead if you can't, because like I said, things are tough all over. Hey, Comet. You have to go BBL. I don't know what that means.
But
that's all. Back. You better be back, buddy. I know where you live. That's not true. I don't know where you live. Today is the 7th of March, 2024. 7th of March, 2024, and here in Sydney, Australia, or maybe Denver, it's 11:04 p.m. on a Thursday. That is correct. You can catch the cave on the air, on the line all the time, or onto your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere, or listen at home on the Grace Table of Digital Radio. Archives are free. Another good reason to donate or tell people about the station. There's a whole bunch of information. We all want content these days, do we not? Yes, we do. Yes, we do want content. Before we start broadcasting at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast. And for Dave?
It's the Bundjalung.
Of course it is. And for myself, the Darak people. And we would like to pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. Thank you very much. Cost of living. Cost of living. Now, one thing is clear. I think is clear. I think Donald Trump is going to be the next president, whatever the number that is, the 50-something, isn't it? Something like that.
Sure.
And I say this because his rival for the Republican nomination has, she's dropped out. She didn't endorse him, funnily enough, but she says you better do a good job. Okay. So fair enough. But here we are once again, the Biden versus Trump. It hasn't happened, Dave, in 150 years. This kind of sort of where a former president got one term, left or didn't win the second term, and then came back. It hasn't happened in 150 years in America.
And come back stronger in the polls than ever before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's a very unusual situation. That's the only point I'm trying to make there. Very, very interesting.
I like the pitch. Mickey. It's going to be the most successful. Anyone but Trump, and anyone but Biden.
Well, there is a third candidate. I've mentioned this before. There's in every election result in the last few elections, when I watched the polls, Trump, Biden, or whatever it might have been. There was a third person, always the same third person, getting about 3 or 4% of the vote. Here's a radically different idea. Why don't you all vote for that guy if he's still running? Here in Australia, there's a massive shift that is happening. It's really interesting, both in state parliaments, but also in the federal parliament. But it's not it's not completely there yet, but we are moving into a direction where the two-party system might be out the window, because a lot of independent members of parliament seem to get elected these days, which is great. It is great because the two parties have pretty much locked it up. There's a really good website. I think it's called, what's it called, Dave? Australian government, except Australian, and Australian is the alien bit is spelled like alien, the extraterrestrials. So Australian government ads, honest Australian government ads, it's called. Mm-hmm. So if you wanna Google that and then see what they have for you, I highly recommend it. It's produced in Australia by a man and a woman out of their house. They hire two actresses to be in the video, but it's the wife's voiceover that you hear. So the man, I think he writes the copy with his wife, but the wife actually speaks. So it's not the actresses that you see that are speaking, but rather the wife is doing the voiceover. Now, these actresses are quite attractive, so there's this bit of eye candy if that's what you're into. But the message is phenomenal, and the information is all accurate.
That's right.
And that's why they haven't been sued yet, because they can't be sued, because it's all true. That's the problem. You know what's funny? Sorry, I'm rambling. But David Icke has, for the longest time, has said that the royal family in Great Britain, as well as in other places, are alien reptilian shapeshifters of the lower fourth dimension. That's his stick, right? And it's not code for Jews, not code for anything. If he says, shape-shifting reptilians of the lower fourth dimension, he means reptilian shape-shifting, lower fourth dimensional beings. He's not talking about Jews, because that's one of the things that he's always being accused of, right? Being an anti-Semite. So I can assure you that he's not. He may be, but he's not using code. Aliens or reptilians in his vocabulary are not code. He actually thinks they are reptilians. And you know what? I can't really fault him for that, because maybe they are. But the point is this: no one has ever sued him for it. So the British royal family, and anyone else for that matter, he said was a reptilian, shape-shifting alien, whatever, not a single person has ever taken him to court and said, hey, this is defaming, I'm not a shape-shifting reptilian from the lower fourth dimension. I'm from the upper fourth dimension, okay? No. No one ever has. Not even Americans that he said, belong to the club of reptilian shapeshifters. And America is the most litigious country in the world. People will take you to court for pretty much anything. But it never happened. And so the point I'm making is, well, if you're right about something, then they can't really take you to court, and they know that, right?
They rather have to prove him otherwise, right?
Yeah, they rather discredit him or have nobody talk about it, right? That's the game here. Honest government ads. I'll put right. It's actually the Juice Media. I'll put the link in there for you guys, because I really think these people are doing a fabulous job, and I think more people should subscribe and watch what they do. And even if you're not Australian, I think the work they do is just phenomenal, and I think you enjoy it. And they talk a lot about American stuff as well. You find American content. So I really want to. I think Dave and my mission is also to spread information, or the ability to access it. I think that's our mission as well. Apart from just bringing you information, we want to bring you other informational sources that you might have missed or just don't know about.
That's right.
It's a big world, right? So that's a lot of me talking. How are you, man?
Oh, Groundhog Day. That's where it is. I feel like I'm in it.
How long have you been up there now?
This is 4 months.
Holy moly. Yeah, that would be Groundhog Day, wouldn't it?
Yeah. but nearly there. And I'm astonished that, for those people who don't know, I left my family to come up and care for my frail father. And he was admitted to hospital, and he's He's out again, which is great. And he's been out since just before Christmas. And I've struggled the entire time trying to speak with, I think, the 4 agencies that have jurisdiction over his care, in-home care, rather than going into a home, like an aged care home itself, but into his own dwelling, and fighting to try and get some momentum on it. But it's people know it takes 6 months to a year to do it. Well, it reminded me, and it's a very callous thing to say against a large corporation, but if you were to, I don't know, equal it to trying to bring a class action lawsuit against big tobacco or big coal or big pharma or what, I don't really care who you are. I'm not going to isolate any one of them in particular, but if it was something to do with you in a class action and a bunch of others that shared the same complaint, that's what a class action is for those uninitiated, and all they do is give you the runaround until there's so few of you to pay, then they'll offer, like Deal or No Deal, they'll offer you some pittance to try to stop you from going to court. Of course, you've signed something, so you're one less in the class action. Well, that's what it kind of feels like. I know that was a very watery comparison, but the longer they wait, the less old, frail people there are to pay money to, right? To be able to pay for the support for them. What it's meant to do is meant to keep their assets intact, because if you have to put someone into an aged care home, usually you've got to sell their assets. And then miraculously, and this is only my personal opinion, that the aged care home facility will maintain that person very well. Very well. Where they have nurses and they have people making food and they shower them and, all those things that you do. But they'll only do that for as long as there's still money in the kitty. Now, when that's up, the bed, we needed someone. So, I've got a story where a friend of mine's father was in an aged care home. And I know that The Simpsons make fun of them a lot. And it uses these different things like, urine-soaked mattresses. And that's actually from AbFab. That's AbFab.
Yummy.
Yeah. But my friend's father had a hospital appointment, so he took his father from the aged care home, signed him out, took him to the hospital, and they said, look, we do that kind of examination first thing in the morning, so we're going to keep him overnight, and then the next day after the procedure was done, he went to take him back to the aged care home, and they'd already assigned the bed to someone else. But because it was yesterday, I signed him out. Oh yeah, but you got to bring everyone back on the same day. But the hospital kept him. I told you guys what was happening. How can you find them? And then he had to reapply to get back into that same nursing home. He kicked up such a stink that they eventually caved and let him in. But it's like, how repulsive is that? So they couldn't even have the bed free for one night. Because that's how they bill it, per night. So anyway, I don't want to say too much at all, make too many accusations. I just want to say I think we've kind of dropped the ball on the most important people in our society. They do spend money. They lived really hard and built it to where it is, but then of course, once you're on that conveyor belt of no longer working, then no one seems to care. No one cares. And it's because there's 4 different agencies, and my father was a veteran, and he was actually in the first nuclear British test. So the British nuclear test off Montebello. He was there in the Navy, and he's the last one, I think, of his ship to have survived.
Oh, wow,
And
really?
yeah, totally. So Montebello nuclear test, if you want to find out how crude that was back then.
Wow.
And they had the ships right up close to it for some reason, because it was the British, right? And anyway, because of that, he has a gold card, and he's entitled to nurses visiting the house and stuff like that, which is really good. Trying to get them to do it, a whole different thing. So I've tried for 3 months, and hopefully I think next week that might actually commence. But how someone of his age would be trying to do it on his own, forget it. I've got pages of notes that every single conflicting agency tells me is the truth, and then you call another agency and they go, "I know that. Who told you that?" And you tell them, and they go, "No, they don't know what they're talking about." You end up doing the Groundhog Day. Oh, today's the day we're going to get somewhere, and then nope. Oh boy. Anyway, so look, I don't think we take care of our age very well.
No.
We've split our generations into different houses. That's one of my biggest complaints, that we don't have multi-generational housing, certainly not in the West's view of how we should live, which is terrible. And with the cost of living going up so much, and it's just absolutely insane, I don't know how anyone who is retired can afford anything.
You have to retire with a significant amount of money.
Oh, it's got to be millions.
This is the simple
today.
answer to that.
Yeah.
Minimal. In fact, depending on your lifestyle and considering increasing cost of living changes, so indexed, right? It might not be enough.
Well, it's never going to be enough, Becky.
Well, yeah. There was in my old super site, with the different super fund my biggest companies, which, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is there was a calculator. And it calculated what if you had this much super when you retired, and then this much super when you retired, then you could do this and you could do that. And if you had the minimum amount, I can't remember how much money it was, right? But you could go out to eat never. You could go on holidays maybe once locally. You could have a very modest life, right? And if you had a bit more, then you could do this, and then you had a bit more, then again you could do more, and then the more you had, of course, the more you could do. But it was it was a bit depressing, Dave, because all your life, this is part of, again, this is actually, thank you for bringing, it's a really good illustration as to how we've been lied to. So the promise of our
2024
work life commitment, we work, sleep, shop, work, sleep, eat, shop, whatever, right, is that you can retire and enjoy your golden years. That's the unspoken promise that you've always had, right? You work hard for 40, 50 years, and then at the end of that, because you've done your bit to build civilization, to build your country, to pay taxes, to be gainfully employed, do whatever you can, be part of the economy, and then you should be able to enjoy your remaining years, hopefully healthy, right? And you should enjoy a goodly number, I almost say, of years, right? A goodly number. But I don't know that is true anymore, Dave. I don't know if that is a true thing.
Well, there's a considerable irony, just real quick, the considerable irony here in this discussion, and that is that superannuation came in, I think, in the 80s, and I started when it started. We all did in Australia. And the amount that we were told back then that you'd need to live, you'd need to have in your super was $1 million. That's how much you needed back then. And here's the way to get there. And I had a number of relatives in working for AMP, believe it or not. And this was the financial plan that we all, everyone in the family was, probably rubbed against the cheese grater and told this is what you must do, and we were hyper aware of what it would take. And as the 2006 crash occurred, I lost half of my super in that crash.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. And I'm going to kind of struggle to get anywhere near those numbers. Even with the wages or the salary I've been able to acquire, but still, it's going to mean at some point throwing money in there on top of the compulsory amount that we're supposed to contribute. So every pay week, right? Every pay cycle.
Yeah, but not too much, because they tax you on that too.
Oh yeah, that's right. You can only have a certain amount, and they're now, was it limiting you to having under 5 million or something?
Oh yeah,
I think there's some total amount you can't have.
Yeah, some crazy people have like 14 million in their super.
Yeah, that's because they've been squirreling it all away.
I mean, yeah, but 14 million. What do you even need super for, man? Seriously.
Exactly. You could just have a compulsory savings scheme that would solve the same problem.
Yeah.
But see, because in Australia, our version of superannuation that's meant to pay for ourselves is mutual funds invested by these institutions into the stock market, or however you've designed your investment plan. Yeah, I know some smart people that have done it themselves and bought property, and they're actually living kind of sweet, but they can't actually earn any of that money themselves until they declare retirement, and then they can get access to it. But it's kind of saved within a little bubble where they can't touch it, but it can earn, and that's kind of really good. But when it's as volatile as the market is, and this is how you're going to depend on sustaining yourself. Now, all this came about because the government said, we're making some good coin. We want to be able to do something for ourselves, make it tax-free, and because that's how it all works. That's how the world works. They do things for themselves, and we just kind of hang on, like do a Marty McFly with the hoverboard and hang on to the back of the car as it's going along. They're all in the car enjoying it.
He's not going to see me. He's not going to see me.
Right. But what's left for the rest of us, because the government didn't want to spend money on our pension, which is a compulsory amount of, say, kind of like unemployment payments that you receive once you've declared retirement. And was the 401k, you've got to be a certain age before you can access it, blah, blah, blah. That's just the US. So where we're at the moment is it's looking less and less likely that anyone's going to be able to afford their retirement.
I agree.
Yeah, totally. And with the cost of living going up so much, which is where the conversation started, even the cost of fuel is just crazy. There's no discernible reason why it should have increased so darn much. There isn't any.
Oh, there is. It's called greed.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the reason,
that
my
one.
friend. And see, this is really where it all sort of disconnects. And again, I'm coming back to the promise, the unspoken promise that if you do work, then you eventually can enjoy your golden years. That's completely out the window, and it is out the window because of greed, because of corruption, because of cronyism. And hey, buddy, I look after you, and you look after me. And see, how do you know a politician is lying, Dave?
Because they're speaking.
Yeah, that's right. Their mouth is moving. That's exactly right. That's how you know a politician is lying. And it's sad, but the truth is, and this is a real truth, this is a truth you can take to the bank. Every politician is a liar. Every politician is corrupt. Every politician had to compromise to get to, if they're powerful. I'm talking about powerful politicians. If you just, if you're honest Joe politician, you're like Mr. Smith goes to Washington type person, say good luck to you. Yeah, you're not gonna do anything. But if you get into a position of power, right, then I guarantee you, I'll put money on it, that you're corrupt, that you had to compromise your principles, you had to do things that most people would find distasteful, maybe even illegal things. And that's where we are. I mean, I'll give you a simple example. Simple example. Apparently, this is in Australia. It might be the same in Washington. It might be the same in Berlin. It might be the same in Paris or Toronto or wherever. But in Canberra, we have apparently a culture of bullying in government, right? In parliament. We have a culture of sexism. We have got a culture of even sexual abuse. Apparently, that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, what? No, surely not. But yes, apparently we do.
And
so
drinking on the
think
job,
about,
Becky.
yeah, exactly. But now think about the kind of people, right, it would take to create that kind of environment. Right? And that's really what worries me the most, because these are the people that are making decisions for all of us. Yeah, they may, oh, well, they're not, see, and this is really what I find upsetting the most. None of the decisions they make actually affect them. Not really. Okay? Because they've got ways around it, they get special tax privileges, they've got other perks and little nooks and crannies. So whenever something changes, they're the first ones to figure out the loopholes. And they're in bed with big business. In true corporate fascistic sense of the word. It's corporate fascism.
The Panama Papers, Becky,
that's exactly
told
right.
us how much offshore money that they've been squirreling away, tax-free.
It actually boggles the mind, to be honest. But here in Australia, I mean, it's bad in America, but in Australia, we have had our country sold out from under us by the politicians. I'll give you a couple of examples. Then Dave, weigh in with anything that you can think
got
of,
it.
Because it's important to highlight this. And I mean, this is Plato's cave. No more shadows on the wall here, guys. So, natural gas. We have a lot of it. We really do. We have buckets of it, and we don't even have to use fracking to get it. Okay, but all the good quality natural gas goes very cheaply to Japan. And I mean, cheap. All the natural gas that we consume here, we consume at a higher cost than the stuff we export to Japan. So the Japanese are getting our gas cheaper than we do. Thank you, Miss Gillard. Much appreciated. The mining profits of corporations like BHP and Rio Tinto, I'm picking on those because they're the biggest, are going offshore. In fact, both BHP and Rio Tinto set up their legal taxable entities in Singapore. I know this because I know this.
Yeah, that'll do. Yes.
And because the taxes are better. So they're digging it up, but it's not theirs. It's ours. It's our sovereign wealth. The Australian people, right, own this. What do we get for it? Precious little. Precious little. What do the first people get for it? Precious little as well. So there's hundreds of billions, maybe trillions by now, hundreds of billions of dollars that are just leaving Australia, never to be seen again. Bye-bye. And then what do we do next? We sell our most valuable farmland and water rights to foreign powers like the Chinese. We sell our port rights, administration and usage rights to the Chinese, right? So on the one hand, and I find this is where the puppet show sort of falls apart from me, right? On the one hand, we don't want to work with Huawei, and I knew the managing director, Colin Hu, for Huawei. I worked very closely with him because I tried to bring him in to replace Cisco. Anyway, I knew him. He's a nice guy. Is Huawei any better than Cisco? Well, they were cheaper. The tech was pretty much the same, but they were cheaper and easier to deal with. But we couldn't deal with them anymore because the Americans said, "Oh, you can't deal with them.
put them on a
because, you know,
blacklist,
spyware.
and then we had to follow
Yeah.
suit.
Yeah, and pretty much Huawei exited the Australian market, which for me was a bit of a blow because I had some plans. Anyway, it's irrelevant. The point is this. So on the one hand, we can't do business with entities like Huawei because, well, 5G. But you know what? Most of the I find this hilarious. Most of the 4G infrastructure in Australia, especially government 4G, is Huawei. Why? Because it's good. It works. It's cheap. But 5G, no, bad, evil. But we're okay to sell all our water and land rights and our ports, all the strategic, you know, assets that we have in order to exist. We can sell those off to the Chinese, no issue at all, no problem. In fact, the only reason, sorry, that's not entirely true. One of the biggest reasons we have a housing crisis in Australia right now is because of foreign investment. Do you know how many hoops you have to jump through to buy a house or land in Australia as a foreigner? None. Zero.
That's right.
There are no hoops. You just buy it. You bring a steamer trunk full of money, and of you like Schindler's List. Remember Oskar Schindler had like two steamer trunks full of money.
Yeah.
You know, that's how he measured his success. I've got 5 steamer trunks of money. Good for you. Yeah. So it's come with the money, and so they buy houses, and they don't care. A lot of the Chinese investors, especially mainland Chinese, because they got money to burn. So they drive the house prices up. Not only that, the houses that are purchased by foreigners, and not just Chinese, but by foreign entities, those houses and flats could be empty for a long time because they're purchased as investments. They don't really care, or they're purchased as only to be used when they're here, or maybe they're purchased for their children to go to school here. So they're houses and apartment blocks that are completely empty, even though we have a housing crisis here. So when you look at all of these things, and then indirect taxes, fuel excise, all that stuff, and then these wonderful things like carbon credit, and now we're bringing out these new standards, you know, and then EV. Oh yeah, we all need to buy an EV. Dave had a beautiful story you sent through.
I did.
There was this whole. Why don't you tell us about the cargo ship?
I will. I'll say one point first.
Please.
So on the governments of the world, where people sitting in a voting seat in Parliament, in your whatever system you have, who themselves privately own stock in the companies that they get to make choices and vote for or against some kind of benefit or whatever it is for them. So there was a recent thing that I saw on one of the guys who is in the Senate inquiry group. He was grilling one person, a politician, about their ownership of, I think they were energy stocks. I'm not going to say company names. And the person replied, yeah, you see, I had to divest myself of those stock because the president said so. Clearly, they were a Democrat within the Democratic Party. And that sounded great. What a great answer. Well, you know, aren't you being tremendous? And the person asking the question says, well, according to the date in which you did that, that was after you voted for the benefit of this company that you own stock in. And he put it to that politician that, in fact, first questioning, do you think that at any time you made a decision to benefit your own stock? Good question. And the politician replied with, no, I, as I said before, says the politician, the president said I should divest myself of this stock so I can make a decision upon them. But the decision was made before they've released the stock, therefore still benefiting them in some way, because whatever it was it was a contract, and the price went up, and when they sold when it went up, rather than, it was only to the benefit of the person, and that was really a big question. No person within the entire, political system should own any stock in anything.
Yeah, that's
correct. You're basically being bought, or you're owned, and we should be really hunting this down. There should be, like, if you're on a jury, you can't talk to anyone. Your phones are off, and you can't watch the news. You've got to make the decision inside a bubble that has no contact with the outside world. That's really important, and I believe that if 1 cent goes towards any politician in the world, because that's going to benefit them, for any decision that they make, then they're immediately corrupt. And it shouldn't. It just shouldn't be like that. But the problem is, Becky, that all the people who get there required money to get there, and then because right. So the more money, the more possibility of getting there, unless you're our aluminium smelting magnate in Australia. But look, so that's the big thing. That highlighted to me the problem with the system that we have, that has been created by the people within it, so that they can play it and do whatever they want. At the moment, I think there was a foreign entity that was claiming the money. They wanted to claim the money back that they had to give, let's say, possibly a currently sitting politician in the world somewhere, because they haven't acted fast enough on their promise. They'd been donated millions, apparently, and hadn't done it. So now they've kicked up a stink and made it public. They've made it public. So I don't want to name any names. Just doesn't it highlight what's really going on? And I think there's a 4th laptop that someone's son had lost. With even more stuff on it, which is terrible.
I hear you, and you know what?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't, because no one cares anymore.
No,
we're all over. We've finished caring, and nothing's ever going to happen.
And this is really, for me, this is the most amazing thing, because again, I come back to 150 years ago, right? 1880s, 1870s, even before that, right around that time, right? This was the time when Karl Marx was around. Socialism was born in many ways. Communism was born. Industrialism was in full swing, and factory workers were the new, the new growth population segment. And the bourgeoisie was looking at it, factory owners, and Karl Marx himself and Engels as well. They were the sons of wealthy factory owners. They weren't poor, but they were. They had a conscience, as it were, and they said, we can't treat people like this. And that's when the workers started to organize. They started to form unions. They started to fight big capital. People were killed in those clashes, because the police, of course, was on the side of the factory owners, right? The money people. And they were brutally suppressing these workers' rights and these movements, and it's almost street warfare. That went right into the beginning of the 20th century. And out of that, we got the unions and the 5-day week and the holidays, etc., etc. And I look at us today. We're in a similar position where the work is changing, it's shifting. We are, even though we're told we're doing better, none of us are doing better. Okay, none of us, because everything costs more, and nobody is fighting anything. Now, I'm not saying pick up a gun and go into the streets, but we just seem to be going, oh yeah, we just take it.
We've become so, I'm going to say 2 things: gullible and apathetic.
Yeah.
We just completely accept what they say. Yeah. No questions. Yeah, sure. And within 5 minutes, we've moved on to one of the real pressing concerns in our lives, well, the high cost of living. But that's around the world. It isn't isolated to Australia, and thankfully
Yeah.
not. Now,
Did-
sorry, Matt. I've got to
Go on.
blend this EV thing in. So, if you remember I think they're called the Felicity Ace car carrier, which was colloquially known here in Australia by one car enthusiast blogger fellow, which I absolutely love all his work. He does a great job. Very sarcastic, but he brings the truth out where it's being obfuscated and there's distraction and we don't get to see what's really going on. And this was known as the Dutch oven. It was a car carrying vessel, and in February 2022 a fire broke out on board the ship, but because it had a bunch of EVs on it, I think occupying 1.5 floors of the vessel, that what happened was the heat caused the lithium batteries to go into thermal overrun, thermal, it's a cascading thermal fault, where it heats up to a certain point and you can't do that, and then they start to burn, and like feverishly burn, and once air gets to the lithium, it starts to get carried away with itself. Now, normal car fires on a carrying ship are sprinklers, and they can subdue the heat, and because it's only water, they can normally contain any kind of car fire to 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 cars. But because it's an EV, water does nothing. It just does nothing to it, right? So all of the EV people who just died in the wool EVist, if you want to do that, it's like a
Is that a
religion.
thing, is it?
Yeah, it's like a religion, Mickey, and Elon Musk is the EV Jesus.
He's the prophet.
He is. And the sad part about it is that all of those, died in the wool EV owners went blue in the face saying there were no EVs on there. This is all conventional vessels, blah, 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 conventional vehicles, right? And not true. So there was an inquiry, and I just love this, that Porsche blamed for devastating cargo ship EV fire.
Or OMG sale.
Oh,
There's a $1,500 factory.
As lawsuits filed against Volkswagen Group. It says a fire broke out on a ship carrying luxury cars costing at least $236 million. Now a lawsuit alleges a Porsche EV was to blame. So one of them burst into flames, causing the ship to absolutely be decimated, like 7 of the car floors or something. And they were still burning 2 weeks later. And that's not a regular kind of fire. The ship had Porsche, Audi, Lamborghini, Bentley, Bugatti, and Volkswagen cars on it, and a lot of them were just, recycled into aluminium cans. You know what I mean? So they were so destroyed. Imagine buying a car that on the inside and out, even though it wasn't damaged, just smelt like, burnt lithium. all the terribly toxic chemicals that you should never ever breathe in. If you're on a freeway or in a car park or in an underground tunnel or wherever you are, and an EV bursts into flames, don't breathe any of that soot in. It's extremely carcinogenic.
You might as well enjoy a good whiff of mustard gas. Off you go.
Oh, it's
Absolutely.
truly awful.
Yeah.
Don't do it. So anyway, look, my point is that the maybe maniacal EV owners swore blind nothing to do with EVs, but I think they're going to see their justice for all of their smug around driving EVs, because at some point we'll just retrofit our existing vehicles with hydrogen and we'll be making less emissions than they are. Because they just outsource emissions, that's all they're doing. It would be like me driving around with an exhaust pipe with all my emissions going into the ocean. Oh, look, the emissions are over there. They're not where I am. And that's really difficult for the people who drive EVs. I know some people who have EVs and hybrids. I think the hybrids are better. But the amount of material, and this is what's going to bite all of us in the next few years, is the cost of the materials for every item we have that we're just about to purchase, that we currently use, is going to be a carbon cost on the consumer. You wait. Mark my words. That's what it's going to be.
I won't be surprised.
Yeah. So, you have... I've got a smoker at home, so if I have to burn gas or wood in it, I'll have to calculate what that means, and then I'll have to pay some kind of tax.
That's complete insanity. I don't even know that. But I don't think that's completely far-fetched. I told you, in Europe they used to have a window tax, and the bigger the window, the more tax you had to pay. So people come and measure. Oh yeah. In my hometown or home village, there's these couple of houses left from about 400 or 500 years ago, black and white, sort of the farm-style houses.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing fancy. These are actually the houses that were built 400 years ago, and they've got these tiny little dwarven windows.
Couldn't see through it if you tried from anywhere except immediately in front of it.
Yeah, and I asked a question in school in history. They said, well, this is what there was a window tax. Of course, the window tax was really a glass tax. To your point, so for glass tax, you will have a carbon tax. Speaking of homes and houses, which is a beautiful segue, one thing I did want to mention is that in Australia, we now have an ever-growing chunk of the population not being able to live in a dwelling. Right? So a lot more people are becoming what I guess is euphemistically termed homeless, sleeping rough. And that's for people that have employment, proper employment, not like the transient employees, but no, actually people that actually have like office jobs. They simply can no longer afford either the mortgage or the rent. And you have to ask yourself at this point, what are you doing? Now, I'm talking about politicians yet again, right?
Yeah.
This is unconscionable. It beggars belief. What is this? What is this? Well, is everybody asleep? It feels like everybody's asleep, Dave. In They Live, the movie They Live, everybody's asleep and sleepwalking through life. And that's what it feels like. I think a lot of people are just sleepwalking through life. Not their fault. There's a whole raft of reasons why that is happening, right? But that's where we are. We all have taken. What's it called? I think it was Somno. Somno? What was the drug in Brave New World? I can't remember. Soma. Thank you. And Soma just means sleep. In case you didn't know, Soma actually means sleep. Like a somnambulist is a person that walks while they're sleeping. Soma, sleep. And I think that's what most people are. Because there's so much going on in the world, right? We're bombarded 24/7 with so much information, we just can't take it all in. We can't take it all in, so we just box it all out. It's like I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. And I don't know how many people are listening to Revolution Radio, right? As a station, I don't know how many people are listening to our shows, Dave from our shows. I don't know. I hope there's a few people right out there listening, but maybe it's only 5.
Hello to each and one of you.
But look, I don't know. And is this? And then you have got things like the woke movement, right? Which to me flies in the face of everything Dave and I are trying to do. This is just insane. The things that people come up with. I think we have like 85 genders now, or some crazy thing. I mean, I'm a liberal guy. I have a very liberal outlook on life. You'd be surprised. But at some point you have to say, hey, everybody, let's just reel this in and let's find our bearings here. Okay? Everybody should be free to do what they want, absolutely. But this is maybe a bridge too far. And I am worried that our moral fabric is crumbling, because you do need something to keep a civilization cohesive. You need something. It can't be sports, okay? And it can't be the Kardashians. You need to have some kind of foundation. It used to be religion. It used to be king and God, right? All that. It used to be even national pride, right? Even if there was like a national mythos that people had. All that's sort of gone by the wayside now. Replaced by corporatism, fascism, and a complete confusion as to what life is all about. On purpose. And did you see the 5-minute cities or 15-minute cities or something?
Yeah, 30-minute cities. That's now around the world. People have signed to this.
I saw this thing, and this was in China, I think, one of those cities. It depressed the living Jesus out of me. And truly, you will never have to leave this block of flats or whatever. I mean, it's massive, right? And everything is there, and you will never have to leave it. And that's, of course, going hand in hand with Mr. What's his name, Schwab. Wants us all to be. Klaus, come here, Klaus.
Be careful.
What do I care? But yeah. That's you can see it though, Dave. We get a housing crisis. Oh, hey, come and move in my 30-minute city. Oh, we're not making enough money. Don't worry. You don't have to own anything. There'd be no responsibility. You just live there. You live there. You eat. There'd be entertainment for you. I urge everybody to read Robert Sheckley. Read Robert Sheckley. Read any of his novels or short fiction. Doesn't really matter. But there's one specifically called Status Civilization. You should read. It's called Status Civilization by Robert Sheckley. He wrote in the 50s and 60s, and he was, I don't know if he's still alive, but he's a phenomenal writer, and his insights and satire and irony are just second to none. Phenomenal. Someone called him, he's Voltaire with soda. And Voltaire's a brilliant writer. But Robert Sheckley, if you haven't read him, there's actually a few of his books have been made into, and short stories into movies. The 10th Victim, for example, right? That's Sheckley. Because this is where they're pushing us, right? Oh, you're living in the street? Come live here. You haven't got a job? Doesn't matter. You don't want you to have a job. Jobs are for suckers. What?
We had the big request go through Parliament and through the media today, also about that government supplied housing.
Yeah. Did
you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so I think the Greens fellow is asking that this is the lowest amount of government housing that's ever been.
Is that where they use your super for housing as well, or not? That's something else.
No. This is just the government should be building houses for people.
Well, I agree. I think there should be more public housing, yes, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, that's right. But you can just imagine how quickly that would shift after that's been signed to being these 30-minute cities.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the rest of the planet can then be parkland. Right?
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be industry. I love your
all
work, but guess what? We've got 1 minute left.
Are you kidding? All the great unwashed will live in the 30-minute cities, and then the feudal corporate fascist overlords will have the rest of the world as a parkland. What a wonderful vision we have conjured up. Thank you so much.
This will be.
Isn't it? but it could have been, and it still can. I think it still can. So thank you so much for allowing us into your lives. We'll be back on Sunday with 2 hours of the show to set out. That's right. Shameless cross promotion. Do take the time to look at honest government ads, and I also recommend the Y-Files. The guys doing a great job, very entertaining. This has been Plato's Cave. Thank you for listening. Most of all, though,